Have you ever heard of a ship that refused to sink, but whose people vanished into thin air? This is the chilling story of the MV Joyita, a mystery that has baffled experts for decades. In 1955, in the vast South Pacific, the Joyita was just another small wooden vessel, known for one thing: her stubborn buoyancy. People said she was hard to sink. In October of that year, she set off from Apia, the capital of Western Samoa, on a routine journey to Tokelau. On board were 25 Souls crew passengers and workers along with medical supplies and cargo. The captain was experienced, the weather was clear, and the sea was calm. It was a journey so ordinary, no one thought to document it closely. It was supposed to be a simple 3DO trip: depart, go, arrive. On the first night, the Joyita was a lone light on a black ocean. The crew stood their watches, making small talk. No one could have imagined they were the last faces to be seen on a ship that would survive, but without its people. The Joyita was expected in 2 days. The third day passed, then the fourth. Silence. Shore stations called out, but only static answered. At first, no one panicked. In the Pacific, radio silence can happen for many reasons: a low battery, a loose antenna. But as the days stretched into a week, then too unease began to ripple through the islands. Rumors started to swell. Had anyone seen a strange boat drifting at dawn? Was that a broken radio call someone heard? The official search began. On the wall map in the relay office, a red pin marked Apia. Between them lay a vast, empty expanse of blue. Where could she be? If her engines had failed, currents could have pushed the powerless hull far off course. She might still be afloat, but where? Then, 35 days after she disappeared, a patrol plane spotted something. A pale shape adrift against the shimmering blue sea. Circling lower, the pilot could just make out the name on her side, faded by sun and salt: Joyita. A rescue cutter was dispatched. As they approached, the scene was eerie. The Joyita was listing heavily to one side, her deck awash with seawater. She was clearly flooded, yet somehow she was still afloat. A boarding party climbed onto the wet, silent deck. The air smelled of oil and salt-soaked wood, but there was no one there, not a single person. The wheelhouse was empty. The radio was inoperable, its wiring appearing to be jury-rigged or cut. On the chart table, a faint ring from a cup, as if someone had just set it down and walked away. Down in the engine room, there was still fuel. The engine wasn't destroyed. It just wasn't running. The cargo holds were even stranger. The medical supplies were untouched. Food stores were still there, tins unopened. But the lifeboats, they were gone. It seemed everyone had abandoned ship. The Joyita was towed back to shore, a floating coffin without a body. Crowds gathered to stare at the ghost ship. Children asked their parents, where did they go? The adults had no answers. The investigation began, and the ship offered a maze of contradictions. Why was there no distress call? If the radio wires were cut, who cut them and why? The engine had fuel. So why was the ship adrift? One theory suggested a cooling line clogged, causing water to enter the engine room. Perhaps the captain shut down the engines to prevent damage, and they simply couldn't restart. Water slowly filled the lower decks, causing the ship to list, but her wooden hull and trapped air kept her from sinking. But what about the people? The missing lifeboats were the biggest clue. Everyone had left the ship. But why? Did they panic as the water rose, misjudging how resilient the Joyita really was? Did they abandon ship in the dark, only to be separated from the vessel by currents and wind? This is Hypothesis 1, a simple case of premature abandonment. Hypothesis 2, a crisis on board. Perhaps the captain or a key engineer was injured. With no radio to call for help and facing a medical emergency, the remaining crew might have made the desperate call to take their chances in the lifeboats. Hypothesis 3, piracy. Maybe armed robbers forced everyone off the ship, but this doesn't add up. Why would they leave the valuable medical cargo and food supplies behind? And why leave a floating witness, the ship itself? A hypothesis 4, a conflict among those on board, a mutiny or a fight that escalated. But the interior of the ship showed no signs of a struggle. Everything was eerily neat. Finally, hypothesis 5, a hidden collision. Maybe the Joyita struck something at night, a submerged log, a lost shipping container that tore a hole below the waterline. As water slowly seeped in, fear grew, and the decision was made to leave. This would explain the flooding, but there was no direct evidence of such a collision. The official inquiry couldn't settle on a single answer. The sea rarely gives up its secrets completely. Every piece of evidence seemed to point in multiple directions. A pencil mark on a chart suggested a brief change of course. Was it to avoid a storm or something else? A stopped clock on the bridge, its hands frozen like two silent arrows, offered no timeline. The most chilling detail was the simple fact that the lifeboats were launched intentionally. This wasn't a chaotic scramble. It was a deliberate decision. A decision that, in hindsight, was tragically wrong. One investigator wrote a haunting line in his report. Joyita never truly wished to sink. Her people perhaps never should have left. Ghost ships haunt us because of the stories they can't tell. The Joyita remains a perfect emblem of that. An engine that could have run, supplies that could have sustained life, and a hull that refused to go down. Everything was there, frozen at the moment the people departed. The ship taught a grim lesson. Sometimes, the inanimate objects we build can be more durable than the humans who operate them, the humans who know fear. We will likely never know what really happened on the deck of the Joyita in those final moments. We can't see what they saw or feel the fear that led them to choose the small boats over the ship that would ultimately survive. All we know is that the Joyita came back, a silent witness from the deep. And in that silence, she speaks volumes about human error, the crushing weight of fear, and the unforgiving nature of the sea, where answers are so often swallowed by the waves. Thanks for watching. If you find these kinds of historical mysteries as fascinating as I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the unexplained corners of our world. See you next time.